Congressman John Joyce joins us next to discuss the tragic death of the at least 50 illegal immigrants that were being smuggled into the U.S. Congressman John Joyce, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Great to be with you.
Congressman, if I could just start by getting your thoughts on illegal immigrants who were found dead while suffocating in a tractor trailer while being smuggled into the country. How could a tragedy like this have been prevented?
This is really unfortunate for the illegal immigrants who suffocated to death traversing our border. But this is a border crisis that was created by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, by not allowing us to have the sovereignty of our country with a secure southern border, has invited these types of egregious activities to occur. And these tragic deaths truly are the responsibility of not having adequate border patrol, adequate protection, not having a border wall to protect Americans. The porous southern nature of our border allows drugs and the illegals to continue to pour through our country. This tragedy rests firmly on the irresponsibility, the lack of courage for Joe Biden for securing our southern border.
Congressman, just transitioning a little bit here, what do you say to the, when it comes to energy independence, the American people who may not fully understand the inner workings of what's driving the high gas prices, oil futures, et cetera, who just think that it's an unfortunate situation wherein because of the Russia-Ukraine war?
The rising price of gasoline is a crisis that's created by President Joe Biden and his personal war on American energy. Biden, by canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, by putting a halt to new drilling leases, and by continuing to blame American companies for rising prices, Joe Biden has failed the American people, who are now paying 2 times what they were for gasoline before Biden took office.
Congressman, if the U.S. were actually to start producing oil at Trump-era levels, would this also help to reduce the cost of gasoline around the world, do you think?
The energy that we need to solve the energy crisis is directly under the feet of my constituents. The coal, the oil, the natural gas and Marcellus Shale that is needed to power our cars, provide electricity to our grid, air condition our homes, can all be provided safely and affordably by using the resources that we have right here in America. President Ronald Reagan said it clearly, that we can have peace through strength. And in today's world, that strength is providing energy security to our friends and allies. And America right now should be doing that.
It appears that French President Emmanuel Macron nudged President Biden a bit on the sidelines of the G summit to start suggesting for the United States to start producing oil. Do you think President Biden will budge?
Let's see. Let's look back at what President Biden has blamed on the oil and energy crisis. He blamed corporate greed. He's blamed the war in Ukraine for rising gas prices here in the United States. And he'll blame anyone and anything except for assuming the responsibility for his own failed policies. Now he's trying to convince Saudi Arabia to pump more oil to alleviate the crisis. You know what? Simply said, that won't work. And even President Macron from France recognized that. That's why he nudged, pushed, encouraged President Biden to produce more American oil, to produce more American energy. My constituents who can supply that energy, America what can supply that energy, also is encouraging President Biden, look to the resources that we have right here at home. We can solve this problem. We don't need to be relying on foreign sources for these energy input. Macron recognizes that, I recognize that, and clearly American citizens recognize that as well.
Pennsylvania Congressman John Joyce, thank you.
Thank you.
The Biden administration rolls out an action plan on abortion access. It comes as pro-abortion activists urge stronger action, and as pro-life groups say what the administration is considering violates the law.
Announcing what's called an action plan Health Secretary Javier Becerra on Tuesday unveiled steps the Biden administration will be taking following the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe v. Wade.
At HHS, we will leave no stone unturned. All options are on the table.
Those actions, he says, include ensuring the privacy of those seeking abortions, training more clinicians in family planning, and expanding access to abortion pills. But one potential move is stirring controversy. Becerra says the administration is considering using taxpayer money to pay for transportation for women seeking out-of-state abortions.
Yeah. Once we tell you exactly what we believe we are able to do, have the money to do, we will let you know. But until then, what I can simply say to you is every option is on the table.
The idea is being pushed by some congressional Democrats, but it could also violate the law.
The Hyde Amendment is pretty simple. It prohibits the use of any federal funds for an abortion or for any health insurance coverage.
And here's the Secretary's response to the legal question over the weekend.
Assisting in transportation, something that HHS doesn't typically do.
Can you do that legally?
Talk to me later.
While the Secretary says everything will stay in the legal boundaries, Katie Glenn, the director of a pro-life organization, tells NTD that she's expecting the worst from this administration.
We're absolutely concerned that the Biden administration sees everything on the table, even if it violates the actual law of the Hyde Amendment, which has been in place to make sure that we, the taxpayers, do not have to pay for abortions except in very narrow circumstances at the federal level.
Meanwhile, Claire McKinney, a professor of government and gender studies at the College of William and Mary, tells NTD she doubts the Biden administration will actually go that far.
Honestly, their response is rather tepid, right? They're very slow in making these decisions. And so I would be very surprised if they made any strong or radical moves to even, promote something that could be challenged in the court.
And Senator Josh Hawley responded to the possibility of the move being considered on Twitter, writing its legal, quote, under no circumstances.
In post-Roe versus Wade America, abortion is still possible in at least half the states in our country. Colorado has one of the most pro-abortion bills in the country, allowing for an abortion right up until the time of birth. We spoke to Colorado resident Jimmy Alexander to discuss. Jimmy Alexander, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, sir.
So you have hopefulness on the side of, people in the Christian faith-based community, but you also have a lot of emotion from folks that are pro-abortion. And I think, we were just chatting earlier, it's not necessarily going to wipe out abortion. For instance, in the state of Colorado, there's some very, very lenient, I think, is putting it mildly, abortion laws on the books here that won't simply change.
No, because here in Colorado, we recently just passed a bill because we have a very left-centered, left-of-center Senate and House of Representatives and President and Governor, and they did push through a bill here that made it the most extreme abortion bill in the entire United States of America. It's an abortion bill that allows an abortion all the way up to the point of birth. And even at that point of birth, if the child is coming out, if the mother decides that she doesn't want to keep the child, the doctor can go ahead and cause the abortion to be finalized at that time.
That doesn't sound like an abortion.
No, it's an extremely bad thing. However, we're finding that there are a lot of people that are even on the liberal side that are finding that this is reprehensible. I think that this was pushed through not by the voters of the state of Colorado, but by the representatives in the Senate and the governor of our state. And so as a result of that, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a real turnaround in the elections that are going to happen here even in this state this year. I believe on the national level we're going to see that kind of a turnaround happen too, because a majority of people don't believe in partial birth abortions. They don't believe in abortion after the 21st week of pregnancy. So I believe that what we're going to see is we're going to start seeing more and more people. People are getting conscious. The more awareness that there is of what abortion truly is and how it's transpiring in the life of not only the mother. There are 57,000 women every year who die from abortion worldwide. And we also find that there's over 500,000 women who have to have mental and psychological evaluations evaluations and help after they've had an abortion. So this is not just a matter of an issue of abortion of the child, it's a matter of the issues of the mother as well.
Jimmy, I want to ask you, we often hear of this term viability, whether or not the life is legally, technically viable. What is your interpretation of this term?
Well, I would not have been viable when I was born as a child. I was a conjoined twin, and my conjoined twin died inside the womb. Today, they would have gone ahead and determined that my mother should have gone ahead and aborted me at that time. But my mother didn't do that. She kept me, and even though I did absorb my conjoined twin inside of me, and when I was 13 years old, they had to do a major surgery on me, remove parts of that conjoined twin out of me, an extra colon, a limb or two, things like that, I still did live. Because my mother felt that there was a viability of my life, no matter what, that life was valuable. I went on to succeed in life. I have a doctorate in theology. I own an insurance agency company. I have an international ministry, Alexander Ministries International. We travel the world. We go to 17 countries, 3 continents. We've established hundreds of churches, Bible colleges all over the world. So God saw that there was still a viability in my life even while I was in the womb. And so providence was set into play so that I could live. And I don't believe that anybody deserves to not have that providence. Every life is valuable.
What a fascinating and inspiring story. Dr. Jimmy Alexander, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
The Biden administration is pressing forward with its pledged support for Ukraine and is slapping a new round of sanctions on Russia. The White House released a new list of sanctions targeting the Russian military complex and its production and supply chains. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen said in a press release, the U.S. and its partners will impose additional severe sanctions in response to Russia's war against Ukraine. The Treasury Department announced the U.S. and its key allies will ban imports of Russian gold. Meanwhile, in Germany, President Biden met with leaders of G7 nations, including the UK, Canada, France, and Japan yesterday. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky joined them virtually. The U.S. allies affirmed their support for Ukraine with diplomatic, economic, and political pressure on Russia. Russia today expanded its sanctions stop list to include First Lady Jill Biden and her daughter, as well as a handful of United States senators.